Hey guys, welcome to this episode of KB's Thoughts. For this episode, I give my thoughts on whether or not I feel that records or vinyl are overrated. Off the bat, my answer to the question would be no. I don't think records are overrated. There are audiophiles and sound buffs who obviously have a much better understanding of what they're talking about and can tell you about the differences between analog as opposed to digital. But from a casual audience standpoint, I do enjoy the tactile experience, and it's not so much about the sound, even though I do enjoy, the crackles and pops that you get with an old school vinyl. And I just feel it's a more tactile, enjoyable experience than, say, listening on your tablet or iPhone, which are both good options as well. So I do really enjoy digital media. I like the ease and the convenience, but it doesn't really measure up to me comparatively with, opening up the record and looking at the liner notes and just the whole experience of putting the record on the player and just enjoying the whole record for what it is. I feel records have made a resurgence recently, at least in the last 10 years or so, which to me is awesome to see, and I do like that things, any form of physical media makes a comeback and becomes more collectible or more mainstream. It also seems that records have kind of a vibe about them as being hipsterish, and that people who listen to them go on a bit too much about how they are the best experience, which is strictly opinion-based. Because everyone has their own tastes, I could totally understand someone finding it a pain in the butt to try and find a record player, set it up, having to flip it over. So I can totally understand someone not enjoying that experience, but it is a part of history, part of music culture, and something that should be preserved, and I think should be experienced by younger generations in the future. When it comes to collecting vinyl, while I don't pick up a lot of it, I do pick up maybe a couple of new albums a year. I prefer to aim for original pressings, and that's just a personal preference. I just like having a record that I feel has some history to it, whether it's from the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. It's just an intangible quality that I prefer. Personally, I like to go out and try and find records like at the markets, which nowadays it's pretty hard to do, considering the sellers generally know there is a marketplace for them, so they generally sell those records at a higher price than what you would have, say, 8-10 years ago. As you can see from just some of the albums I've highlighted, I have kind of a mixed taste of what I like record-wise, and I generally like to aim for what I consider to be classic albums. So I feel my approach to record collecting definitely is quality over quantity, and while I don't have anything amazingly rare, I do have some good stuff which I'm proud to own and have in my collection. I have actually seen new vinyl in stores in the last couple of years or so, so that's really cool to see. And for people who are just casually wanting to pick up records, or, they want to dabble in it for the first time, they can pick up a cheap record player and they can grab a couple of classic albums, at a decent price, which I think is good for the hobby. And it's good for just music history in general, because I don't want to see things like that get lost as we, progress with new technologies and new way to consume media. What I feel is kind of lost in today's digital era, where we consume things, in sound bites and in fragments, we miss out on the experience of ingesting something as a whole body of work. Whereas an album would be put together to be experienced and listened to in a complete cycle, we more pick and choose tracks now, and I think that's changed the creative process for artists, because they more create music as singles. But again, that just depends on the artist or, the genre of music that you're listening to. There are still artists out there creating new music for records, and I think that's something to be commended. I do feel it's awesome that there are new releases and old records which are hard to find getting reissued and remastered, and that there's an audience out there for them. So with the resurgence of record players and records in general, I wonder if we'll see this continue over into other forms of media such as, VHS and cassette tapes. So while I don't feel that records are overrated, that opinion does come from the perspective of a collector as opposed to someone who may not have the collecting gene. As always, thanks for checking out this episode of KB's Thoughts, and, just thanks for checking out any of the content that's on my YouTube channel. Please check out my Facebook page, and I'll check you guys out on the next episode of whatever I produce next.